If you're listening to this podcast in the shower, you're probably not alone.
I'm embarrassed to admit, but I can't remember the last time I had a shower without listening to music or a podcast, or even waited for my coffee without picking up my phone.
We've become so uncomfortable with letting our minds wander that we fill every possible moment with stimulation. But the research shows us that this constant input is preventing our brain from doing some of its most important work.
In this week's episode, we'll be exploring the power of boredom and why our brains need to get comfortable with doing absolutely nothing.
The information in this podcast is for general, informational and educational purposes only. Nothing we say should be taken as individualized advice. If anything you hear brings up concerns for you, we strongly encourage you to speak with your GP, psychologist, or another qualified health professional.
We would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional owners of the unceded lands of the Kulin Nation, on which this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge their rich history and honour the ongoing connection to land, waters, culture and community. Welcome to This Might Help, a podcast bridging the gap between evidence-based psychology research and your everyday life.
We're your hosts. I'm Dr. Lauren Rossetti.
And I'm Dr. Kira Hart. We're two Australian psychologists.
And today we are diving into boredom. We are talking about why we need to let our minds wander and also why tech and particularly our phones are making this so much harder.
Yes. Exactly.
Before we get stuck into all things boredom and hopefully make the audience very much not bored, we should do our wellbeing win and wobble for the week.
Let's do it. I'll kick us off.
Yeah.
My wellbeing win. I've had a really lovely week. I've had a great week in terms of friendships. So I think my wellbeing win has just been spending time with my beautiful friends. Which obviously brings me lots of happiness and joy and connection. Mm-hmm. So shout out to my wonderful friends. That's brought me lots of happiness this week, my wellbeing win. And then I would say my wellbeing wobble. I found myself comparing myself to others a lot online, and even things on LinkedIn, just on other people's pages and being oh wow, how did they get that job at such a young age, and kind of that social comparison, which we know doesn't bode well with our mental health. So having to kind of take a step back and realize how quickly I've lost my perspective when I had that social comparison. Yeah, that was my wellbeing wobble of the week.
Yeah, they're kind of good ones, not a good one that you're comparing yourself socially, but a very good reminder for all of us.
And I was able to recognize it and those feelings of jealousy and being okay, I'm feeling jealous and I'm feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm comparing myself to someone else and everyone's on their own journey, etc., etc. But that was a good reminder that nothing comes good from nothing comes good. What am I trying to say?
Nothing good
comes from
social comparison.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's something that's so, I just feel that's something that so many people will resonate with.
Yeah.
And it's even whatever scenario you're in, there's always someone to compare to.
Yes.
I think, my ones though for this week, my wellbeing win is that I actually finished one of the book club books. And I read it. I got through one that I'd been halfway through for a long time, and I've started the book for next month. So I'll update everyone when I finish it.
Look at you go.
But I am feeling very proud of myself that I did that. So, and it was a really good book. So that's a wellbeing win.
Go girl.
My wellbeing wobble is kind of topical to today, and it's that I've been feeling a lot of random moments on my phone. I've just found the past week I've been reaching for and passively consuming things a lot more than usual.
Yeah.
I think it's because there's been times of more stress. And so then when I've been when I've been overwhelmed by my to-do list
Yeah.
and there's 10 million things on there,
Yeah.
to comfort myself, I've just like reached for my phone and like
Yes.
been like looking at stuff, which anyway,
Yes.
we're going to unpack all about why that is not particularly helpful in today's episode. And
Yeah.
I'm going to take my own advice to shift that well-being wobble to a win for next week.
Yeah, but I think it's something that so many of us can relate to, reaching for your phone to pacify your feelings of stress or feelings of boredom in today's topic.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the research and the theory. Today we're chatting all about boredom, and hopefully, as you mentioned, it will be a fun and exciting and not boring episode. So nowadays we are constantly consuming content.
Yep.
All the time. We have access to videos, music, podcasts, entertainment at our disposal. So you would think we're becoming less bored, but that's not what the research says. It actually suggests that our rates of boredom are increasing, despite the fact that we have access to endless things that can entertain us.
Yeah. And we do fill every moment with stimulation. So
Yes.
like think even walking somewhere and you stop at the lights, like standing there and you'll automatically pick out your phone, or like waiting for a coffee when you go to a cafe and sitting on your or looking at your phone whilst you're just waiting for a coffee, like needing to listen to music or a podcast or something when you're taking a shower, even the fact that we'll now like watch a TV show or you'll put on a movie and at the same time be like scrolling
Yes.
and going through your phone
Yes.
whilst you're consuming something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like not even that thing is entertaining enough
Yes.
to like prevent us from being like bored and then grabbing our phone or something else to take in.
Yeah.
And we never anymore really let our minds be still. And this time when we're not distracting ourselves with something, or when we're letting our minds actually wander and think, that's the thing that's really, really hard for a lot of us to do these days. Like just let our minds wander and be unstimulated by something.
Me. Like, it is so hard.
Yeah.
I can personally relate.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are so many reasons why we want to let ourselves truly sit in that feeling of like being bored or letting our minds wander. And that is what we're going to be diving into through the whole episode. But to start with, Kira, let's actually kind of define what we mean by boredom.
So boredom is an uncomfortable state where we want to be engaging in something enjoyable, but we can't. And that could be for a few reasons. Maybe we don't know what to do. So we're sitting there bored and we don't know what to occupy our time with.
Yeah.
Or perhaps we're in a situation where we physically can't do something else. So for example, you might be sitting in a boring meeting at work and it's inappropriate or unprofessional to just get up and leave. You can't. Or maybe you've just arrived to a first date and it's a little bit boring, but you know, social etiquette, you want to be polite. You're like, I'll stick out the next 30 minutes and just sit through boring chat because that's the nice thing to do.
Yeah.
So boredom doesn't feel good. We can all kind of think back to times where we've been bored. It's unpleasant and time feels really slow.
Yeah.
When we're in that state of boredom. From an evolutionary perspective, being bored or unstimulated was potentially dangerous. For instance, back in the day, we were required to scan for threats and kind of survey our environment constantly, seek out resources. So being bored might evolutionarily be an uncomfortable feeling to kind of drive those actions of seeking for danger or seeking resources.
Yeah. And it signals in our brain kind of a lack of purpose in the activity that we're doing. And boredom then sparks our brain's search for kind of meaningful engagement with something.
Yeah.
There are kind of two routes to boredom. One is kind of the obvious understimulation. So when we don't have kind of enough mental input or things coming in to keep us engaged. So like if you're on that really boring date.
Yeah.
But you can also get bored from overstimulation, which I find really interesting. So this is when there's so much kind of chaotic or like meaningless or unlinked information coming into your brain, that you can't extract any of that kind of meaningful engagement with the information, and that can make you bored.
Can you say that again? That's new to me.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So when you're overstimulated
Yes.
and there's too much information coming into your brain that's like not connected or meaningful,
Yes.
you can feel bored.
Yes.
So this is where like doom scrolling essentially, or like
Yeah.
taking in lots of really short form content, taking that in
Yes.
quickly, your brain can't really extract like the meaning and engagement from what you're consuming. And so it can
Yes.
also stimulate that feeling of boredom.
I'm also thinking if I was sitting in like a really, really difficult subject at school or uni and there's like a lot of information, it's overwhelming and it's kind of going over my head, I would be really bored in those classes
Yes.
because I'm not like actively engaged consuming what's being said. I'm just like, this is too much.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's like a threshold, I guess, and that kind of links also to attention, what will hold your attention. If something is too hard
Yeah.
and too complex, or there's a lot of overwhelming information, our attention and then like our engagement in that will switch off, and we might feel bored because we're not actually engaged in something because there's too much or it's too challenging. Same thing happens for if something is too easy or understimulating. So if you don't have enough information coming in, or it's something really easy that you know already,
Yes.
you then can't really focus that attention to engage with it, and then you'll also feel bored.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This is good. I'm learning so much. Thank you, Lauren. This also explains why we're seeing these big increases in boredom in young people, especially. Young people have access to so much technology and they're consuming all these things, which initially we kind of get that feeling of boredom. But so quickly we can pick up our phone or grab something to distract us. And we're feeling that time where we're not really sitting in that boredom or discomfort. We're just automatically picking up things to distract us from our boredom.
Yeah. And because it's a lot of that, like often short form content or like information really quickly, we can then feel like that's not necessarily doing something meaningful that addresses the boredom.
Yes.
Yeah. So this kind of increase in overstimulation and the fact that we don't really let ourselves like get or sit completely in boredom anymore, that's what's kind of concerning in the psychology space, or just in general kind of conversation, is that we fill all of our possible time that we have with things to kind of avoid this feeling of discomfort that can arise when we allow our minds to wander or to truly be bored. But that feeling, and I guess the feeling of boredom is by nature uncomfortable. Like that's part of being bored is it is an uncomfortable feeling, but we have far less ability to sit with that when we have unlimited access to things that can distract our minds. Have you been experiencing this, Kira, or have you been, I mean, I kind of know that you are, but to tell our listeners, or yeah, have you found yourself also letting yourself be completely bored?
As I said earlier on, this episode is much needed for myself. I have, for my whole life, it's not a recent thing, really struggled with feelings of boredom. I find it so uncomfortable and so difficult to sit through, to the point where school holidays when I was a kid, I used to hate it because I wouldn't know what to do with my days. And I would constantly be like to my siblings or neighbors or parents being like, what can I do? Give me a task, give me an activity, because sitting there not having something to do was really difficult for me.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I rarely let myself be bored. I'm someone who's constantly consuming content. And I think on one hand, that is good. Like I listen to like podcasts such as, okay, I don't listen to this one because I'm speaking it.
Well, you do have to listen to it to
edit it. Yeah, so exactly. But I do find myself listening to a podcast when I drive or when I go for a walk, or listening to music around the house whilst I'm doing like chores. to kind of avoid any ruminating thoughts and to distract myself from any possible feelings of boredom.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely something I relate to, but rarely do I give myself the time to just sit and be bored.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Yeah, the same.
Yeah.
I like really don't let my brain sit at all. And it comes from or is driven by that discomfort with just sitting and thinking.
Yeah.
And then I guess there's a more stress oriented, anxious oriented person.
Yeah.
When I do allow my mind to rest, it'll often more immediately be those like stress or worries or those types of thoughts. But I know logically that by never letting myself sit with them, I don't like process those thoughts or allow them to like I don't allow myself the opportunity to problem solve them either, because it's far more appealing to grab my phone and just be completely distracted by that and not have to think.
Yes.
But we're going to talk about why that's not good.
Exactly. It's quite different that we usually think of boredom as a bad thing and think of boredom as something to be avoided. But I suppose in this episode, we're unpacking the power or the benefit that boredom brings. So why do we need more of that? Like, why do we need more boredom? Why do we need to let ourselves be truly bored?
Yeah. When we're bored, there is a network in our brain that becomes active, and this is called the default mode network. This turns on when we're not focused on like any particular activity or task. So the way we kind of test this in like the research world is by literally getting people kind of to lay down in a MRI. So it's a brain MRI, and they're not doing anything. They're just laying there.
They're just chilling.
They're not sleeping, they're awake, but they're laying and just not doing any activity in particular. And that will then activate this default mode network. So you'll see like a range of activity in the brain happening that is the consequence of this kind of mind wandering thinking time where you're not actively engaged in a particular task. It's like the analogy of your brain being in screensaver mode. So it's like the screensaver mode of your brain. And this default mode network is crucial for like a number of things. So this is where we start seeing that self-referential thinking. By self-referential thinking, I am talking about literally thinking about yourself. So thinking about yourself, thinking about characteristics of yourself, things that have happened to you, your goals and your future aspirations. So it's kind of like self-thinking.
Yeah.
It's also a time when we're connecting memories and when we're imagining future scenarios. So we're kind of thinking through and hypothesizing or planning or like having these thoughts. And we also make new connections between unrelated ideas. So an example of this could be when you have time and your mind is wandering, you might think of how you've been working on like a complex thing at work. You've been doing a project or a problem or something in the moment, and when you have that time to let your mind wander, you might think about how, oh, this other thing I experienced is related to that, or actually there is this other thing I can use to help me solve that. It might even be like when you're letting your mind think and wander that you suddenly figure out, oh, I've had this problem and this friend can actually help me with that. So it's like putting two and two together kind of.
Connecting the dots. That's so important.
Yeah.
The state of boredom is also linked to more creativity. And by creativity, I don't just mean being able to draw and paint or dance well, but really creativity in terms of problem solving, as you were just speaking to, and thinking of novel ideas. So our brain needs to be understimulated, and it needs that just like time where we're a little bit bored to make those unexpected connections, which leads us to be more creative in our thinking.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're more open, if you've got like kind of a more open mind frame, like you're more open to experiences or things happening, and if you generally have an internal locus of control, which we spoke about in the last episode.
Yes.
So You can go back and listen to that to
Yeah.
understand what that
Circle
means.
of control we
Yep.
love.
Yeah. So if you've got that more open mind and that internal locus of control, then this might come more easily for you. So you might more easily be able to kind of get into that state of mind wandering and thinking, compared to if you're generally more anxious or more of a worrier, because this time then mind wandering can feel overwhelming, which is the crux of why we avoid it, right? Because it's uncomfortable. However, if you're generally like that and you do feel a kind of more anxious or have those worries, that doesn't mean it isn't beneficial. It probably makes it even more important to kind of have that time where you're able to sit with your thoughts and like have quiet time and not, I guess, being at every opportunity soothing those worries with
Yes.
content.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is this sweet spot with the timing that we allow ourselves to be bored.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that you have to sit down and do nothing for hours to experience the benefits and the creativity that come from, having that understimulated time.
Yeah.
But it's having like a period of time where you allow your mind to wander, but it doesn't have to be too long. Like it doesn't have to be hours,
Yeah.
because that will be frustrating for a lot of people.
Yeah.
If it's too short, if it's like a few seconds, that's not giving you the time to really like think through problems and create those novel connections.
Yeah.
But kind of finding a sweet spot. Maybe it's a half an hour that usually you'd listen to a podcast when you go for a walk, giving yourself that half an hour just without content, without entertainment, uninterrupted with your thoughts.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily like, we're not saying you're sitting there on the couch and you're staring at a blank wall and like you're not taking any information in and you're like actively doing that to mind wander. It's that every time we don't know what to do with ourselves, we all of us automatically pick up our phones.
Yeah.
Or turn on something. I mean, I do it all day. Like, this is a problem for so many of us.
I had an example the other week where I was feeling a bit overwhelmed from numerous aspects of life, like work, social stress, family things, just lots going on. And usually when I hop in the car, I listen to music or I listen to the radio or a podcast and I have that stimulation. But I found myself being so overwhelmed. I just needed to sit with my thoughts and have that drive time to problem solve and to plan and to think about, okay, I'll have this conversation with this friend, and with work, I'll approach it in this way.
Yeah.
And usually I don't really dedicate any time in the car to do that. I'm just like consuming my content and having fun driving and not being bored.
Yeah.
But I needed to be bored on that drive and like problem solve and plan and just sit there alone, uninterrupted with my thoughts.
Yes. Yeah. And that's also speaking to the fact that like you're doing something else in that moment. So you're driving, right?
Yes.
But it's still time when you're letting your mind wander. So it's the same thing of like cleaning. Like if you're cleaning in your house, and a lot of us will turn on something to consume while we do that.
Yeah.
Or like, washing dishes or on the short walk to work, or like we said, waiting for coffee.
Yes.
Like just picking up something and waiting. Like any of that downtime, we are so uncomfortable with often. And, I think about how wildly different this was in the past, because when there weren't phones or mobile phones, like you had to entertain yourself in those moments, and that sparks this creativity, right? Like when you have that downtime, you need to come up with things to entertain yourselves.
Yes.
Like if you're standing there, you might even, I'm like kind of brain spiraling in the things that this can lead to, because even like waiting at a coffee shop, right? Like if you pick up your phone every time you are waiting and you're standing there like scrolling, looking at it, you miss every social opportunity as well in that scenario. Like you can't strike up a conversation with another person waiting, and you might not do that anyway, but maybe that person would ask you something, or maybe you would see something really lovely that was happening around you, or maybe the barista would ask you a question, or and maybe some people don't want that to happen and that's also fine. But it's like, by filling all of those times and preoccupying our brain, it's also can limit some of the interactions or experiences that we might have by just letting ourselves be like engaged with our environment.
Yeah.
It's making me think about the photo that I showed you before we started this episode, which is it was about kind of boredom and the reason that kind of boredom stimulates creativity. But it was a man on like a little sailing boat, and he's sitting there on the edge on his phone. So he's like looking down at his phone, and there's a whale breaching in the water right in front of him, but he's completely missed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is so sad.
Yeah, it is so sad.
It's like you're missing kind of, dare I say, like the wonders of the world and the beauty of the world, because we're so consumed by like our entertainment, that being our phone.
Yeah. And it's both, I think, like the fact that we have access to the phone, and that makes it really easy. But I think it's also around this tolerance that we can build of being okay with being in that mind wandering thinking state. And if we go back to kind of the creativity, sorry, we've gone on like a side quest there, but in terms of it improving or leading to creativity, and like you said, it's not just creativity, is not like you need to be within the arts to do that. Like in my research job, or, in all of our jobs, we use creativity all the time. And there's this thing in like academia really commonly where people will have like thinking time blocked into their diaries. And so, for a lot of people, it's like the Friday, like morning to midday. And that time is like where no one can book a meeting in. It's like time to spend for a full block on one task, where you allow your brain to like start to think about the connections between ideas and plan and come up with those new ways of solving a problem or approaching something. And that really only comes when we let our minds actually wander and do that. Yeah, like if you don't have any of that time, we don't even let our brains come up with new ideas.
And I know there was the example of Bill Gates kind of like escaping to the forest or a cabin for like a thinking week, and obviously that's like the extreme end, and there's a lot of privilege in being able to just like retreat to a lovely cabin in the woods and think. Like that is a massive privilege. But it goes to show kind of like leaders see the benefit of kind of like removing yourself from work or removing yourself from like cognitive demanding tasks and finding like escape or finding boredom, finding like finding yourself in situations where you're not surrounded by stimulation and entertainment to think and to solve problems.
And it's just so ingrained in the way that we live our lives every day now that we do seek and take in stimulation. And I mean, we were having a dinner with some girlfriends like not that long ago, and we were all talking about how we're so overstimulated. And we don't ever get to be bored. But there's a lot of it that we do. I mean, I'm going to say like we do to ourselves, but it's not just ourselves. Like the way that tech is created and everything makes it really easy to do it. But I just think there's so many times within all of our daily lives where we can consciously or actively let our minds be still or let them wander. That is really important. Like we don't have to have a whole week where we can go to a cabin, or we don't even have to have those whole like blocks of time in a day in our work week where we get thinking time. It's more allowing pockets of that time to come up within our daily lives more often, which we'll talk about later when we get to the strategies.
In this modern day and age, like it is hard to find that like beneficial boredom time when we have notifications on our phones, when we have kind of like the trap of dopamine on social media apps or on kind of like our devices that are built to grab our attention. Like is challenging for people, and it makes so much sense why we go to the quick fix and the dopamine hit rather than sitting in that uncomfortable feeling of boredom.
Yeah.
It's very understandable, and like we do it all day, every day.
Yeah.
So we can relate.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to talk now about why boredom or mind wandering time is so important for kind of planning our lives as well and problem solving.
Yeah.
So mind wandering, or this time when we allow ourselves to be bored, like we said, it's not just for kind of the creativity element of it, but it's also for doing things like personally planning those future goals, planning our days, kind of working through conflicts and setting goals and all of those things, like what you said about your drive to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So like, I mean, I think you've done a good job because you mentioned there was a lot of things going on that week. And so it's very commendable that you like actually were able to turn something off to let your mind wander. Whereas typically the more kind of stressed we are, or if there is lots going on, we kind of will we'll seek those other things to distract us.
Yes.
Yeah. So good job.
Thanks.
But like I was talking about with the networks that get activated when we are bored or when we kind of let our minds wander, they activate this kind of self-reflection and emotional processing, like parts of our brain. And that provides, so like boredom provides us with opportunities also to like be introspective about ourselves and to build our own self-awareness. Like, how are we contributing to things that we could change? Like, what is it that I want to like do or shift or move or like grow about myself? It's also space to kind of evaluate our values and our aspirations and our priorities. And we can work through difficult experiences and emotions as well. I think we've talked before as well, you know, on the podcast too, about how we, might spend that time doing nothing or like just thinking, and that we will then figure out like how we're going to resolve some conflict.
Yes.
Yeah. Where it's really hard to do that if you don't ever let your mind like wander or think about that.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we eliminate kind of boredom by filling all this time with content, we're also eliminating this like life planning and kind of problem solving opportunities.
It's like the idea that people's brightest ideas kind of come to them when they're in the shower. But I know personally, I should sometimes have a shower with like a podcast playing or like music playing. And I love that. Like, I love having a bit of a dance in the shower, or kind of like if there's a podcast I really want to listen to, I don't mind that I do that.
Yes.
But it just goes to show that that is eating into the time that otherwise I could be creatively thinking.
Yeah. And we're definitely not saying like to turn all of that stuff off. Also because we're literally making a podcast that we want people to listen to. So we're very much not saying don't do any of that. It's that we do it all the time.
Yes.
So I think where it really hits home for me is in like all of the little moments when I'm even not in my house, but when I'm like, walking somewhere and stopping at the lights, or when I'm waiting for a coffee, or even things like standing on the tram or waiting for a train, or, you know, those moments, they're times where now actively, like I will notice that I'm automatically picking up my phone and holding it, and I'll try and leave it away and just like stand and observe the world, or like let myself think through a problem. It's those times. It's like not about the things so much that you're like actively consciously wanting to consume. So for example, you've got an audiobook you're really enjoying and you're listening to that whilst you're cleaning or cooking, and like that's great, right? Like you're engaging in something you consciously want to do. Not about those types of things, more about when it's being passively drawn on, like you're reaching for it to avoid or distract yourself from your own thoughts.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have an example of this, which I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit. It happened to me the other night. I live quite close to Coles, within walking distance. Like, it's so close to my house.
Yeah.
And I had to just pop to Coles to get a few things, but I didn't have my AirPods on me. And I was like, I couldn't possibly walk to Coles without listening to music or without listening to a podcast. Like, that would be so boring. Like, I was like, I have to get my headphones. I have to listen to them on the way to Coles.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I don't have to. Like, I should be able to walk to Coles with my own thoughts, just take it in the environment. But to me, I was like, that just sounds so boring. I don't want to do that. That's unpleasant.
How many minutes is the walk to Coles?
Literally 3. Like, if that.
You can't even get through a full song.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But
it's so relatable though, because it's also a safety blanket too, right? Like, it feels more comfortable. And I guess that obviously comes back to everything we've just talked about how boredom is uncomfortable, but it's just this thing we need. And I think because a lot of us have grown up with tech like becoming a part of our like teenage lives and things, and we've had more access, we've never had to sit without that. Whereas there'll be people listening that have, you know, like like when they were younger, it was like you read a book or you know, you create something to play or do that time, or like that comes naturally. Like, I think to my parents it's like crazy that every time I have a shower I've got to have some, like, I'll watch something on YouTube, I'll listen to a podcast or an audiobook or something. To my parents, I think they are like, that is just like, what are you doing? Can't relate.
I'm sure my parents are also shocked that I need to be listening to something whilst I do my grocery shop. Like, I couldn't possibly listen to the sounds of Coles. Like.
So it is so uncomfortable. And I think even it's just, a lot of us can't think of anything worse than having to just sit with our own thoughts. Which I keep coming back to it as like where a lot of this stems from. And we use social media as this coping mechanism. So, I mean, we've been talking then a lot about like listening to music and podcasts and audiobooks, but obviously a huge part of it is like jumping onto social media when we're feeling bored, and we use it as a coping mechanism for that. So this, however, drives this experience of boredom. So because content is so short form now, like lots of little snippets of little things, and we consume it really quickly, it's really hard for our brains, like I was saying earlier, to kind of make meaning from that content. So it might be that when you're really actively engaged and watching something and it is interesting, that your brain is making meaning from that. But most of the time we're like quickly like flicking through things and we're consuming stuff really fast. And we don't have the time to process and remember. Like, you won't remember what TikTok you saw 10 swipes ago, right? And it was like a few minutes ago, but you'll forget so quickly. That meaningless, like, you know, it's not to say that the content on there is meaningless, but it's to say that our brains can't really process and make meaning of that content. And that then, even though we're sitting there and we are doing something, we will feel bored still because we're not meaningfully, like, actively engaged in something. And because when we get that feeling of boredom, we seek something to fill that time with. We're kind of like dopamine seeking. So when we get that initial feeling of boredom, our brain is like, you need something meaningful to fill this time. And so we seek kind of a dopamine hit or something entertaining or something to do. We know that our phones are like a source of this immediate dopamine release. And so that becomes that automatic thing we reach for. And then we're in this cycle where it's like, feel the very initial sense of boredom, immediately want dopamine, immediately pick up phone, engage in content that is actually not very meaningful. And so we keep feeling bored. And so then we like, we're in a cycle.
The cycle continues.
And so we need to talk about how we break the cycle.
Exactly. We know that boredom, it's a thing that is good for us. There's all these benefits to being boredom, but being bored, but it's an uncomfortable feeling to feel. How do we build up boredom tolerance? So let's chat through a few strategies.
Yeah.
Clearly, just telling ourselves, be more comfortable with being bored isn't going to work when we find it uncomfortable and we're driven to seek dopamine. We're driven to be entertained.
Yeah.
What are some ways we can kind of overcome this or address it?
Yeah. Mindfulness. Every episode, we're like, mindfulness.
Everything comes back to
Yes.
mindfulness.
But mindfulness helps us with boredom, not in that it's like eliminating the discomfort of boredom, but it's increasing our capacity to actually tolerate those unpleasant feelings or that unpleasant state of being bored without automatically trying to escape it immediately. So it's developing more of this tolerance for being bored in the moment so that you can actually reach the point where you're letting your mind wander.
Exactly. So we might have the automatic thought pattern of, I'm bored. This is so awful. I need to do something now to escape this feeling. So we reach for our phones. We want to develop the ability to think, I'm bored. This feeling will pass, or this feeling might give me time to think creatively or solve a problem or troubleshoot things. I can sit with this for a while.
Yeah.
And sit in that feeling.
Yeah. And reducing our phone use or times on our phone
Yes.
is another thing we keep coming
Another
back.
technique.
Yeah, another thing we come back to, but it's I guess a part of it that we've already spoken about a lot is like that passive scrolling time when we're using our phones automatically to escape boredom.
Yes.
And because we want the time where our mind can think about what we actually want to do. Like,
yes.
I am sitting here, like I get home from work, you sit on the couch and okay, well, I've been here for 30 seconds and that's unbearable. So pick up my
Yes.
phone and scroll. But then your brain hasn't thought about what do I actually want to do within this time? Oh, I have this book. I'm like halfway through. I should read that. Or I'm going to sit here and even like having that mind wandering time. But it's not just that. It's also thinking about what you actually want to meaningfully spend your time on.
Yes.
And if we automatically reach for our phone every time we get that initial sense of boredom, we never then go through the problem solving of what we want to do, like what we actually want to do.
Exactly. As you've been chatting, the example of the coffee shop has really resonated with me. And I'm someone who I love going for a coffee. Like it's always a highlight of my day.
Yeah.
But I often do find myself ordering my coffee and then jumping on Instagram or going on my phone because I then have a few minutes to wait. And to get rid of that discomfort, I distract myself by going on my phone.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking it would be such a more pleasant experience to engage with the other people in the cafe or the barista, or just like take a moment to be mindful in the coffee shop and be like, cafes are beautiful. They're always like got beautiful treats and desserts and like things going on.
Yeah.
So just like spending those few minutes like looking around and appreciating, oh, I'm on a break. I'm about to get my delicious coffee. Like there's some beautiful pastries. And like having that moment as a moment of mindfulness rather than a moment where I jump on Instagram and then negatively compare myself to others and feel 10 times worse. So I think this episode's going back to my well-being wobble and has solved all my life's concerns. No. Okay, that's a bit hyperbolic, but
because it's not just you're not going to stop in the cafe and see a whale breaching in the water to go back to like that photo, right? Like we're not going to see, it's not that you're going to see some like miracle in front of your eyes. It's that if you're on your phone though at all times, if any of that does happen, you're not going to see it. But you're also going to miss like the general day-to-day lovely things. Like I go back to like my walks in the park, but like the dog running through the park or like the person, I don't know, just other people and things.
The love of my life could be in line next to me at the coffee shop and I'll miss him because I'm on Instagram.
Exactly. Ban it now. No more Instagram for you. No, but also, I think when you were talking about that, I was thinking about how, like, sometimes we pick up our phone or we do things in those moments for a reason that we're really consciously doing. Like, sometimes I'll go to the cafe and I've got an email to send and I'm like, perfect,
Yes.
this is 2 minutes. I'm going to smash out this email on my phone and I'm going to send it, and then my coffee's ready and, there we go. You're not needing to, like, eliminate all of those moments, right? Like,
Yeah.
sometimes you do something and it's
Productive.
exactly. It's the fact that a lot of the times we're not using that time productively, like we're using it for an escape.
Yes.
And
I'm not
then
even conscious that I'm picking up my phone. It's
Yeah.
just like muscle memory grabbing it.
And then we miss the opportunity to have that creative thinking time. Yeah. So there are some practical ways that we can do this day to day.
We've discussed some already.
Yes.
So we've jumped the gun, but going back to our show notes in the order. So yeah, when we're waiting in a queue or waiting in line for something and there's a few minutes, resisting the urge to fill that time with stimulation, such as our phone or distracting ourselves with whatever it might be.
Yeah. I have been taking my walk to work. I have to admit, not my slightly longer walk. I have still been listening to music on those ones, but I have a shorter walk to work a few days a week and have not been putting my headphones on. Like, I've just been not doing anything, and I'll just walk, not have anything on me, the surroundings, and my walking.
Yeah.
And I also find that that is really beneficial for, like, priming me for the day. So I'll be like walking there and thinking, okay, I'm seeing like these different people. I've got this booked in. I'm going to get this done before I do this. I'm like planning, problem solving. Even like, I mean, in a lot of our work, I'm like thinking about like diagnoses or different things. And that requires a lot of creative or like problem solving thinking. I need to put a lot of pieces of a puzzle together in my brain.
Yeah.
And that downtime or like that mind wandering time really enables that, where I can start to put like these links together.
Yes.
So I've been doing that with a walk to work.
That
no
walk
music.
sounds great.
Yeah.
Another strategy is reframing our relationship with boredom. So as we kind of started off this podcast by saying, we often view boredom as a negative thing, something to avoid, but reframing it rather as time being wasted or something to avoid, thinking it of giving our brain that downtime, giving our brain that time to be creative and to do that important background processing that we don't get when we're watching TV or on social media or distracted by entertainment.
Yeah. And getting to think about what you actually want to do. Like, what do you want to do in the moment, but also like, what do you want to do in the future? And I think this is where kind of starting small and building gradually is helpful. I know there's a lot of stuff online about like these like dopamine detoxes and like things where you have like a whole week or however much time with like no phone, no content, no, like you're not consuming anything. For most people, that's really hard. And we've also, I guess, spoken a lot in other episodes and in our like very, kind of first one about social media, about how there are benefits of these things. Like, there's benefits of the audiobook and there's benefits of the podcast. We wouldn't be making this one if we didn't think there was. And there's benefits of like social connection through those platforms. So it's not cutting out all of these things. It's really just taking moments here and there to think, I can actually just sit here with my thoughts and I can let myself be bored, and I'm going to reap all the benefits, and probably in the same time make yourself feel so much less overstimulated by just having time where your brain gets to sit and think.
Exactly. So before you reach for that stimulation, asking yourself, do I really need this right now? Do I really need to check Instagram, or am I just trying to fill the space of boredom? Or do I really need to be listening to music? And maybe it's like music will hype me up and it will put me in a positive mood. Great. Listen to music then. But maybe it's like, oh, actually, I really need to think through this problem at work. I'm going to spend the next 5-10 minutes in the car with my thoughts rather than being distracted by Sabrina Carpenter.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I find that if sometimes I like need that initial boost to start something, or it's like the afternoon and my energy, all the energy of my brain is like gone, that I'll put music on while I'm working through something or starting something to
Yeah.
kind of like get me going. And then there are other times where like I've got to turn that all off, and I know it's just to like I'm distracting myself
Yes.
from like what I'm engaging in. Lots of things.
Yes. So I think a good takeaway from this episode is just assessing, what are we doing during our time of boredom? Do we need to intentionally increase our time we spend mind wandering?
Yeah.
And what do we find ourselves doing when we're bored? Are we immediately reaching for our phones? Do we actually need that in that moment?
Yeah. Yeah. And how much time are we escaping or like self-distracting from the uncomfortable feeling of sitting there with our thoughts?
Yeah.
And where can we build some of that in? Like, where can we slowly build some tolerance with letting ourselves sit with our thinking and just let our minds wander? What are you going to do this week, Kira? Since this is clearly like a very prevalent problem for the both of us.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to have some mind wandering?
I have thought of 3 things. The
Ooh.
first one, the coffee shop. As I said, often go to the coffee shop and find myself on the phone, but I really want to be more mindful in the coffee shop. The second one is my commute to work and being more intentional about, okay, do I need to have like some thinking time, or can I listen to my audiobook or listen to a podcast? Like, kind of, where am I at? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Do I need to work through problems? Or am I happy to be entertained on my drive?
Yeah.
And another one is when I find myself getting home from work, I often play a little game on my phone.
Yep.
So that's like an app I have, which is a source of entertainment. I love my game. For anyone near and dear to me, they know how like obsessed I am with this game. I have avoided talking about it on the podcast because it's a little bit embarrassing. But I often kind of find myself in a little rabbit hole in my game, which on one hand is like a fun way to entertain myself and unwind for after work. But sometimes I would like to go for a run, or I'd like to go for a bike ride, and I don't actually sit and think, okay, what do I want to do this evening?
Yeah.
I just get home from work and I'm like, yay, game.
Yeah.
So my third one is having 5 minutes when I get home from work to be like, okay, what are my evening plans going to be?
Yeah. And because maybe you'll sit there and think through that, and your plan will be, well, yes, I want to play this game.
What about you? What are you going to do?
I am going to try
Yeah.
and have a shower with nothing playing, no podcast, no music, no YouTube video. I'm gonna try really hard. Isn't it so sad that I actually can't remember? Like, I feel like I've grown up doing that since a teenager.
Yes.
And so I can't remember when I've done that.
I remember as a teenager, we would take our study notes into the shower. Did you have that?
Yeah,
Plastic
behind the
pockets?
wall.
And I think maybe that was even encouraged. So I think we've been programmed to be like, okay, shower equals productive time
Yeah.
where we learn or where we consume things.
Yeah. I'm reframing it to be that it's productive time to mind wander and be creative and think of ideas. And maybe I'll come up with like a whole nother 10 podcast episode topics when I let my mind wander for like 10 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that's my goal. Love it.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope that you did not find it boring. You found it engaging, and you've gone away with some things that you would like to do this week to intentionally increase your boredom time.
Yes, you can not be bored by messaging us and saying hello and reaching out at This Might Help podcast. We're on Instagram and TikTok. Ironic, but yeah, some actively conscious entertainment for you. And the video version is on YouTube as usual, and all the resources, including a really good article in Nature Communications, which is this big journal that stimulated a lot of this discussion today. We'll put that in the show notes, so give it a read.
If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to a friend who you think would enjoy it as well. And please rate us 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really helps us grow. So we would love it if you've enjoyed the app to share it with someone.
Yeah, and now that we're at episode 15.
Oh my goodness.
It is a wonderful time. There's lots of content for someone new to listen to and catch up on. So share it far and wide. Now, as always, if you need further support, please get in touch with a healthcare professional. And there are further helplines, as always, in the show notes. And until next week,
have a great week.
Yeah.
And be bored.
Yes. Yeah. Be bored.
Okay.
Bye.